All right, test, test, test. All right, there we go. It's good. All right. Good day, everyone. What's up? I hope everyone is doing well. Tuning in. I see Rafa on the chat. What's up, man? Colin Costea, aka Anti Talenat, aka Paris, the name changer. Oh shit! I got my own sound on the background. Let me put that up. All right, so let's get into things today. Um, I think the stream is going to be a little bit different than normal. Hello, Yelena. Finally, you could make it. Yeah, I did it 1 hour later today, hoping that some people from the US could join as well. And I see it is working, so that's really good to see. So today is probably going to be a little bit different. I mean, I am going to pay attention to the statistics, but obviously we know that we have the ETH ETF that is going to launch today, and it's probably good to start off with that notice that I personally like to tread more on the side of caution when we have a high volatility event during the day. And I would classify the ETF launch as a high volatility event. There's a lot of uncertainty about what will happen, whether Grayscale will start selling, whether like how much they will start selling. But regardless, it seems evident that there is going to be volatility going into it. So that brings us to the next question. You know, the thing I like with these volatility events, though, is that I think there is a case to be made where we can say, okay, that the statistics might actually have priced in this volatility event, and that this might be for like an omen of what is about to happen on the launch of the ETH ETF, as in that, you know, well, it really depends on which version of the efficient market hypothesis you hold, but a lot of versions of it indicate that price is stores all the knowledge there is, right, or a lot of the knowledge there is. So, in that sense, this might be an omen of what is to come. That the market already knows what is going to happen, right? But this is a theory that is hard to really test. So, again, I'm gonna tread on the side of caution. What's up, Rafa Blanco? My man, Taylor, how are you doing? Taylor and I are both living in Lisbon, and we are both enduring extreme heat today. It's 36 or 37 degrees or something. So, shout out to Taylor, also going through the heat. So, I was actually looking at the BTC chart. Yeah, ETH is the one I'm most interested in today. ETH took a nice little run up. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later. I do think things are looking quite okay for possible continued upside, at least from a TA perspective. But I'm going to cover that a little bit more later. So first of all, I just want to make an important note. I am going through the analysis as normal, but realize this is a very this is going to be a very volatile day, right? This high volatility news event, or not a news event, but the ETF is launching. Great day for crypto as a whole. I'm actually pretty excited to see what is going to happen. But regardless, long term, it's very bullish. But so keep that in mind while we go through the statistics. So first thing first, I want to share what I shared a little while ago. Let me see if I can. All right, this is what I posted yesterday. Can I put this in a browser? Yeah, there you go. So let's go through this, right? Where I said, what's up, all? Hope everyone had a good weekend. Daily statistics are indicating a moderate bias for the downside today. So this was yesterday and it's played out. However, I would like to repeat the same message I mentioned at the start of last week. By the way, as a final side note, I think it's good to read the market and take that into account as well. For example, I am predominantly bullish right now, as all of you know, so I could choose to ignore bearish signals and only pay attention to bullish signals. That is, I could choose to not act on short right now due to a bullish environment and instead wait for long signals to appear and take longs. That's probably what I would do in the current environment. And then I go on to say that that's something I would still do. Obviously, yesterday that did not play out, or at least yesterday we did have that downside. So that is not to say that my analysis on it, or at least I still stand by that view, because I'm not saying, well, shorts are not going to play out. I'm just saying on aggregate, I do believe that in the current market conditions, short signals will have a lesser likelihood of playing out than long signals do. And I just want to make clear that I still stand by that statement. So we are seeing some more, or let's see what we're seeing for Bitcoin. All right, yeah. Let's just start off and look at the chart what we see right now. So on the day, we see there's not really a lot of biases. We see there's one strong bull bias, Ethereum, hint hint. That's actually cool to see that Ethereum is the one coin with a strong bias. But again, we know the ETF is going to launch. We don't know what's going to happen exactly. So I'd be very cautious with following statistics on any of these, or at least for Ethereum. Yeah, I just really don't know how that's going to play out. I Yeah, I like to tread on the side of caution on these. But what I do think is a good sign that all of these 8 hours are flipping strong bull, right? So I already said just now that my bias is bullish and I want to be on the lookout for strong bullish signs. And if I see this starting to appear, because if you want to have a bullish signal on the day, then first they will manifest on the hour, then on the 4 hour, then on the 8 hour, then on the day, right? And eventually possibly on the week. Because if I just look purely at TA, and I have said this in that same post that I said, is that I think the market is reaching a stage where it can stay retarded for longer than what is considered normal. So I've been saying since the bottom here that I'm flipping full mega fucking bull, and I still stand by that as well, because I think there is a chance that we're reaching similar stages as, somewhere coming from the bottom, similar price action where you just have this upward consolidation and these higher highs, higher lows. So I'm just going to stand by that statement until I see a sign of weakness. For now, I do not see it yet. In my opinion, we would need to lose this level in order to see that kind of idea for now invalidated. For now, we're holding it, we're SFPing it. Took that liquidity from here. So right now we're still holding that, and this is just because it's key market structure. So this is me applying my general bias to the market on the statistics, right? So I said, okay, I'm only going to pay attention to bullish signals, personally, because it's just, let's go through that actually, why that is, because I think is an important aspect, and then we'll get into the statistics and do it that way. Let's go. All right. So the main thing for me has always been that we were in this range here, right? I mean, you can argue about where the range low and where the range high was. And for me, this, I would put the range high somewhere around here. This breakdown was never a breakdown, right? I've been saying that I would expect price to have that final capitulation stage, which we have since had. Maybe a good one to get there, just so we all know what we're talking about. Where is it? There you go. So here, this is that final capitulation stage that I posted. I was waiting for since here. And then right here, when we were in the low, I said, good morning. Looks like we have entered the final capitulation phase. Sentiment is pretty much exactly what I described in my initial post for this stage. All right, screw this. Crypto's done. I'm out. Bye. Right. So that's what's going on at those lows. For me, going into those lows was already, okay, this is an interesting time to buy, which is what I did. I started buying here and just kept on DCAing until here and then stopped DCAing. So now I'm positioned. And then we reclaimed that range low, which is really, really strong, right? Because now what we have, and if you mind that I also made another post on the liquidity, most of it resting on the upside. Let me actually just do it like this, where I've been stating, okay, we're going to go for that liquidity, or at least it's very unlikely that we will not. And so what happened? Let's review this, right? We had this massive range. We went down right here. Everyone was screaming that we're going lower. This was the bearish breakdown of the range. Crypto was done. And that whole sentiment was just really, really bad, which is exactly what you want to see for a capitulation phase, right? Because we're talking about capitulation. That literally means that people are giving up on crypto and they're selling their stuff. So this is what was happening here, right? All the influencers were saying, oh, bearish retest, we're going bearish. blah blah. So that was very bearish, and you take massive liquidity not only on that S&P there, but look at that, a beautiful tap of the naked daily point of control. I often say naked daily point of controls are the shit. They're on my favorite levels. I would really, really pay a lot of attention to them. So what happened is that we had that phase, we had that sentiment, and then we suddenly reclaim with strength, right? And this is always what happens in these situations because this leaves people sidelined. So you have all these people that thought, here, okay, crypto's dead, right? We're done. We're going to 44K or something, or 40K or whatever. And then suddenly price moves up aggressively. And what that means is that these people that have exited the market no longer have a possibility to enter the market, right? Because price just rapidly moved away from them. So I actually, I know there's people who sold here. People came to me saying, hey, I sold. What do I do now? And well, I don't have an answer to that. My whole point was trying to prevent that. But anyway, so that just, it has the perfect recipe for final capitulation. And then we move up strongly from there. And then what I would think would be the most bullish scenario, or let me put it like this. So this is a very bullish move, in my opinion, right? Where we just have this massive strength coming out of that deviation from the lows, leaving a lot of people behind, capitulation all over, sentiment down the drain, bam, massive move up. And now what you kind of would be the most bullish scenario is if you don't give these people who exited here another chance to enter. Another thing you could say is that even if price would go here, they would not enter because, this is how psychology works. People right here are now, oh man, if we go down here, I would definitely enter again. But if price would come down here, then you know what happens when it's down here. People say, oh, well, no, never mind. It's looking very bearish, like I'm not going to enter. This is just how things operate. So, but that's beside the point. Considering this is such a bullish move and we have so much liquidity at the highs, I have been in favor of a rather quick move towards the highs. And therefore, my whole bias is bullish. And therefore, I am saying, okay, I would rather pay attention to bullish signals rather than short signals. And if you look at it so far, the short signals have been underperforming compared to the long signals. And I will stand by that bias until I get proven otherwise. And, sometimes I switch bias earlier. For example, here I switch bias to long pretty much from here, so very soon. But it was also, I had statistical confirmation, and it made more sense to me. And right now, I just see that longs are winning and shorts are not. So therefore, I want to pay attention to long signals and not short signals. And yes, in this case, yesterday, this short played out. But yeah, I just prefer to trade the trend and trade the strength. And at the moment, I think the strength is to the upside. So that's more a little bit of the bias or how I achieve that using regular analysis. Now, with all that said, I know now you understand why my bias is bullish. Let's dive into the statistics. Quickly jump in the chat. Peter, what's up? Maybe this week will continue to be flat. Next week it will start. I do think this week will be volatile due to the ETF and due to the uncertainty around Biden. The people not knowing whether the sitting president is alive or not, or whether he's dead or not, or whatever the hell is happening is pretty uncertain and could lead to some pretty big fuckery. So then combine it with ETF launch, I do think we're going to see a bullish week. All right. GSKI, what's up, bro? Terror, beautiful indeed. Gume, very weird aspect ratio of streaming. Oh man, I see it. I'm sorry. I forgot to change the display. I'm on another monitor right now. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I cannot change that right now. I cannot change it. I'm sorry. I realize it is weird, but I hope it is still readable enough. I hope it's still readable enough. So let's see what is going to happen. So I still think we do have liquidity build up here at these lows, but obviously the big magnet is going to be the liquidity at those highs still. So let's see if we are going to run into those. those off. So we have that key mark structure level here. And once again, apologize for the resolution. I completely forgot to switch resolutions. So this level here is very important for me. If we actually lose this, then yeah, a little bit more downside could be possible. Although, so this would, like, if we lose this, it would invalidate that we only have, like, then at least we're not in up only mode, right? Invalidation of up only mode. But it doesn't mean we have to go all the way down, because even if you lose this, the general structure is still bullish. I would say the first real big structure to lose is right here, which would I consider a 4-hour low. But if you hold this is what I would consider very bullish. And this was a wick, so it doesn't count. All right, now that we have our general bias, let's go into the market. All right, so we have, or into the statistics, we have the current 8-hour flipping bullish on a lot of assets. The day is still pretty much undecided, right? Personally, I do not like to look at just normal bull and bear signals. I do not consider them the strongest. I would like to see strong bull, right? So what we're seeing here is a lot of strong bull signals, which means there's a historical high likelihood of going up. And I see Blanco inderdaad, there are some bear signals on the hour, but it's not too alarming yet. That does mean that we're probably going to go down for the remainder of the hour, so until the ETF launch, which is interesting. But still nothing too convincing yet either, right? There's 2 strong bear signals, and the rest is regular bear, which I find less strong. But let's take a closer look. So for the week, we can already say, okay, we just don't know what's going to happen yet for the week. It's completely undecided, at least from a statistical point of view. So not much we can do there. The only thing that we do have on Bitcoin is that we have the P2 on Tuesday. And we know that during the last, I mean, you can actually see that here. If you go to distance statistics and then go to the weekly and we select Bitcoin, and then I just, put filter mode on manual so that the table on the bottom right doesn't get filtered. Here we see all the price action from the last weeks and what the P1 and the P2, the days were of the P1 and the P2. I mean, look at this. Monday, 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 Tuesday, Monday, 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 and then Thursday. So I think it's like the last 17 out of 18 or less, 16 out of 17 weeks or something were had P1 on Monday. At some point, this insane streak must break. At some point, this insane streak must break. But for now, we do know that, the weekly P1 on Monday has been a lot stronger. We see that as well if we go into the time statistics themselves, where you see 58.3% of weeks on average over the last couple of years put in that weekly P1 on the Monday. And we can see that it has absolutely skyrocketed over the last period, right? So here we see the recent change. We can indeed see that P1 on Monday is not to be messed with. So, that is one thing to keep in mind. At some point, it has to break. So my prediction is that, what is my prediction? Let me think about this before I say it. Okay, normally I don't like doing this because I do like to pick a side I favor more, but if I do not see this holding, or if I do not see this being lost, I would strongly favor that this might be the first time in 18 weeks, or not 18 weeks, but in a long time, that we're going to see P1 on Tuesday. So this level, again, is really important, that 66160 level. Yeah, 66160. Hold that, and I think we will break the high. But the thing is that we have P1 on Monday, P2 Tuesday, but the distance stats are not really telling us anything. They're not giving us confidence for P1 to hold. Because if we look here, we can see 74% of this metric. And if this is high, then we know P1 is likely not, we cannot say it's safe, that's for sure. So let's go to the daily. For that, I want to go to the summary page. Yeah, so the couple of coins that do show a strong sign are predominantly bullish, or the three strongest are bullish, and then the two after that are showing bearish. But nothing too decisive. These ones, actually, we can look into these, actually look nice. I mean, this one definitely looks nice, ETH, but we know we have the ETH ETF dropping, right? So, I mean, we'll look into it, but again, keep that in mind. But the more interesting part right now is on the 8 hour. So let's go to the 8 hour because we see that there's a lot of biases on the 8 hours. Let's see exactly what the biases are. Again, what I want to do is I want to see which ones still have room to go. So for that, I can filter here, candles with more distance. I want to see, at least 55% chance the price is going to displace further. All right. Yeah, so an enormous amount of high probability plays, including ETH. Let's just map out ETH. Let's just map out ETH. And let me check where Bitcoin is in this. Yeah, so Bitcoin is not doing anything. So let's look at other coins. ETH, let's go. All right, so ETH is saying that this 8 hour is likely to end higher. Right, so let's start from the daily. The daily on ETH is indicating that in terms of distance statistics, only 15% of days would have a P1 that is as far as this right here. So that we would do the flip like this. That happens in only 15% of days. But 78% of days, so if that low holds, 78% of days actually move higher, which is quite a lot. So you can say that there's an approximate derived 80% probability of price moving higher if you look at historical data. So the daily is biased for upside. And once again, I want to caution everyone that we have a very unusual day today. But I want to go with the statistics regardless. So on the 8 hour, we see that only 6.7% of these 8 hour candles that we're experiencing right now would have a flip like this. So a P1 that is as far from that 8 hour open as this is right now. So this is a very, very low probability occurrence. Very low probability. And 62.8% of days would have further displacement, which is not the biggest, I would say. Like, you cannot be shocked if it doesn't go further than this. So, another possibility would be just to range in between until the end of that 4 hour, right? But in 63% of these candles, price would actually go higher. So you do have a slight edge to go for that 8 hour high. But again, this is a really, really, really unusual day. So I personally wouldn't go off these statistics, especially not this 8 hour block. I would rather wait to see for later of what happens. Because, man, anything could happen. But usually this is a setup that I would actually really like if this were a normal day, because what we see right now is that we have that high likelihood of continuing higher for the day, right? We have that low here, we have that high here. It's not. Oh, I'm actually going to dive into say a thing or two about this low right here because I do like it. So normally, let's pretend this is a normal day. Normally, this would be a great setup because we have, statistical likelihood of going higher, as we have seen on the daily. And you also have statistical likelihood of going higher on the 8 hour. So what you could effectively do is enter here somewhere, say you want to enter it and have your invalidation below the 8-hour low. And again, I wouldn't take this right now due to the external or the extraordinary circumstance that we find ourselves in for today. Great day for crypto. But you could use this as your invalidation, and you could target, because let me put it like this. If your daily, normally you would use your daily P1 as invalidation if you want a continuation trade. But what we have right now is a situation where both the daily is signaling continued upside as well as the 8-hour. And as it happens to be, the 8-hour is also the 8-hour high is also the daily high, right? The 8-hour P2 is also the daily P2. So both the 8-hour and the daily show statistical likelihood of taking out their respective P2s. So what you can then do is say, for example, well, I want to target this. You can just use the 8-hour P1 and then target the daily high. And then if the daily high keeps or the daily keeps going, which would be likely since 78% of days have more displacement, that means you probably have some room to go. So, that would be a nice entry. But again, personally, I'm not taking this, but this is what I normally would do. Then something on the P1 there, right there, which is a really nice one. I see GSKI, FTM looking good. I'm going to look at FTM after this. Thank you, man. First, I want to say something about this one right here. So what we see right here, this P1, and I need to write a tutorial on this. I've done the list of one of the many tutorials I'm writing. I'm slowly, man, these tutorials are sucking the life out of me, but I'm getting to them to you soon, and they're going to be good. Spend a lot of energy in it. But anyway, what you see here is P1 hour 5 is an unusual time to put in a pivot, right? And what I like to do is something I often preach, and that is anticipating improbable events. So hour 5 is P1 is, to my best knowledge, an improbable event. Let's take a look at the data to confirm this. Yeah, so in only 3% of the days would we have a P1 at hour 5. It is on the lower end. We could look at 3-hour clusters as well. Would be the cluster hour 3, 4, or 5. Yeah, so it is on the lower end, although not the lowest. But it is definitely not the most likely pivot, right? But what I've noticed, and I've written a post about this before, but only the older members will probably know this because it's been quite a while since I posted it, is that if we have an improbable pivot like that on an improbable time, how it very, very often happens is that we go down into the daily open, put in a pivot right before the daily open, and when the daily opens, we go in the opposite direction, and then we take that pivot after daily open and continue in the other side. So what it basically does, and you see this all the time, I made a video about it as well. I know Blanco will probably remember, is that you put in this liquidity. In this case, it just missed it. It just missed it. Did it take it on another exchange? Let me check. Wow. So in this case, it just missed it. But if you do see a pattern like this, where you put in a low just before the daily open, go up, revisit that low, preferably take it. In this case, we just missed it, narrowly missed it. But this kind of price action is something you really want to see. And if you then go up, then very often that is actually a pivot for the day. So if you have an improbable time, but you see that kind of price action, then that is actually really good. And usually it's in the London hours that happens. Let me see if I can find another one. Lately, no. This has been behaving quite well, as in putting in most of the pivots at probable times. But you want to pay attention to that pattern. There was a while where it really played out a lot, but I don't see it now. But anyway, like this kind of price action would make me normally more confident that the pivot would hold, even though it's a low probability pivot. All right, Does anyone, it's in 1 hour is when the ETF starts trading, right? They're saying don't panic, but I'm running out of patience. Right. Thanks for doing the written tours. They're really good. Gonna spend my afternoon around them. Amazing. Sergio, any thoughts on Mantra? Mantra Element, is that I actually don't even know what it is. Is that an asset? There is a nice stream where I explain the detail. Exactly. I did a stream, but I will have to look it up. All right. But, in this case, we know that at least statistically, Ethereum is likely to go up. And again, Peter, could you tell me what Mantra is? That a coin? If it is, just give me the ticker. And if it's in there, I might be able to judge it. But normally, this would go higher, or at least is more probable to go higher, because we have seen that both the daily and 8-hour are very much poised for higher. ETH, strong bull in the daily, bull in the 8-hour. And it's only bull in the 8-hour because this one is not met, or this one. If I would probably do this like this, and you would, because there's only 63% of days that have, or 8-hour candles that have more displacement, and my threshold is that I want to see at least 70%, but we didn't meet that. But it's still, the takeaway from that is that it's very likely for the 8-hour low to hold, and in 63% of the cases would we actually go higher. And obviously, I'm not even talking about the time statistics yet, because they are most likely also in favor of upside for the 8-hour. Because if we have Bitcoin or Ethereum, sorry, right here, so we can select it here, then get a time statistical overview. We see current P1 is in the first 8-hour block, P2 in the second 8-hour block. And yeah, that is also very much in favor of P1 staying and P2 going if things were normal. If things were normal, right? Can go to the time as well, and then I'm going to check FTM. Yeah, so we see it's already been 12 8-hour candles since the second hourly block in this 8-hour candle put in a P1. It's happening less lately. This one is happening more. So yeah, all the statistics are definitely in favor of continued upside for the 8-hour. But once again, realize that this is a very, very weird day. All right, so with that said, let's look at other assets. What I would normally do, right, is start at the daily. We've already seen that there are no real big biases on the daily. There were a couple. So you could actually go into those. CRV, LDO, and ETH, where we just had ETH. LDO looks good from a statistical standpoint. Let's see where FTM is. FTM. So yeah, strong bull in the 8-hour. All right, yeah, let's get into that. So what I would normally do here, if I don't see any biases on the daily, then obviously I'm going to be paying attention to the current 8-hour. And the fact that we're actually seeing exhausted bear on the current hour is actually nice, right? Because if you have a strong bias for the upside on the 8-hour and the current hour is exhausted bear, that means that we had a significant move down on the 1 hour, right, relative to the 1 hour, which means we're having a retracement, which means there is possible entries. So that's actually very nice to see. I would personally want to see this, and especially because it's reaching points of exhaustion. So we can definitely dive into that. But normally I would go on the daily. Right now, there's not much on the daily except for the CRV one, right? We're going to get into that a little bit later. But then I would go on the 8-hour and remember that my bias is already up, right? I have a bullish bias. I explained that at the start, why my bias is bullish. It's because of where we came from. It's a very important point, right? I often say to understand where we're going, you need to understand where we came from. And well, in this case, it's ETH, but Bitcoin's leading the market. And I was looking at Bitcoin. And we came from a position of strength in Bitcoin. Hence, my bias is more bullish than it is bearish. But I also have to admit there is a shit ton going on this week, so who knows? But then if I don't see daily, but I see the 8 hours starting to flip bullish, for me that's like a first sign that things are starting to flip bullish, and maybe the daily will flip later. As I mentioned, the 8 hour comes first. After that, the daily flips bullish as well, or the 4 hour comes first. And it would just be very interesting to see what happens here. Let me just put that, because purely from a statistical standpoint, from the time statistical standpoint, obviously this is not the best pivot, right? Hour 7, not at all. Yeah, sorry. Before I go to FTM, let me quickly do one more thing on Bitcoin. So we're going to go to Bitcoin and then the daily, because we know the distance statistics are not giving us much here because the move is too small to P2. Or we'll see into that. But we at least know from this perspective that, so hour 7 SP1 has not been happening a lot at all. This is why I went into it. Because just from the time statistics, we can already use that to estimate, okay, what is the likelihood of this pivot holding, right? So we have now a P1 at hour 0 and a P2 at hour 7. Now we know that this one can become, so the P2 can become P1 by doing this. But for that to happen, we can look in here and we see that would happen on average 3.7% of times, but we can also see that it has been 103 days since this happened. So if I just change this to the last 50 days or so, it has been 103 days since this happened. We can see it here in the recent in the evolution graph that it's just not happening anymore. So it is very unlikely to happen, to have a P1, P2 flip from hour 7, right? So something like this happening from that P2 at hour 7, this has been a long time, 107 days to be exact, that it happened on a weekday at least, right? I have weekends filtered out. So at the very least, you would say we need to take this low out of the day. And if we would see a reversal, we already know that it's more likely to happen in one of the following hours, right? It's actually, New York is a high probability time to put in a pivot, we noticed. So if this were to happen, then we would want to see it happen later on. So if there was a long, we know it's not, very likely not now, right? So we can at least wait for this P2 to be taken out, which is very likely, right? Because it has been 103 days since we put in a P1 at hour 7. So we know it's not happening. So that was the last conclusion I wanted to make on Bitcoin, that at least we know this level must hold for the ultra bullish scenario. If it doesn't hold, it's still not bearish. But this would, if this level holds and we go up, that's really bullish, really bullish. And at the same time, we know that it's likely not going to hold now, and we want to see it taken out, preferably around the New York Open. That would be the most logical conclusion. Another thing I would like to bring to your attention is that I know it's a little bit hidden away, but if you press here, this up arrow, what you can do is that you can view the data in a different aggregation. So right now we're looking at hours of the day, but you can also look at 3-hour clusters. So you see the same data, but it's just looking at, okay, when is the P1 and P2 put in within 3-hour candles? And I know some of our members prefer this, actually. Azashin, for example, uses it, who has been a long-term member, been with me since the start, actually. And you can go even one further up, and then you will see the data for sessions. And if you hover over here, you can see what session times we are maintaining. They're a little bit different than the actual times, but these are commonly used. And what we can see is that New York just puts in an absolute ton of pivots, let me just show you that. It's been a while since it put in P1, actually. That's actually quite crazy. It really has been a while since it put in P1. 22 days since it has put in P1. So putting in a P1 in New York is actually not the most likely. Yeah, we had a period where we put in a pivot, that's the orange line, 80% of the days, and right now it has gone down to 60% over the last 45 days. So more or less over the last days, 60% of the days put in a pivot during the New York session. So it's still more than half the days. Let's see what the more or less the average is over a longer time period. Yeah. So also it's also the longer time average, more or less 60%. So 60% of days usually put in a pivot during New York. And this is what you can see here in this data, right? This orange line is where either P1 or P2 was put in during New York. And you can look at this for the other data as well. But we know that New York is a very popular session. We can see here that P2 has been being put in during New York a lot more often as well. So it's just a quick tip that you can find this data here, right, using the up arrow. So we're just patiently waiting for this low to be taken out because we know our 7 is not a good low. It's not a good P1. It is also not a good P2. That's the one thing I forgot to mention because we know it's not a good P1. Let me just divert back to that. We know it is not a good P1, but we also know it's not a good P2. Forgot to mention that. We can see only 0.2% of the days have a P2 at hour 7, and it's been 473 days since that happened, which is a really, really long time. So there is a very small chance this will happen, and there's an even lesser chance that this will happen, right? For that to stay P2 until the end of the day. Hence, we are biased for further downside. Let me just quickly check the distance stats in case I missed something. Also slightly biased to the downside. We see that 32.7% of the days would have a P1 this far away and during these hours. So not super convincing, but definitely biased for further downside as well. So, or at least a little bit biased. Moderate bias, as I would call it. Or slight bias. So again, this low we must take it out, and we want to pay attention to Bitcoin because if Bitcoin really starts nuking, then the rest will surely follow. With that said, now I'm going to go into other coins. So I'm going to check out FTM. I am keeping a close eye on Ethereum and ETH BTC ratio. I want to say something about that at the end of it, but it's not very related to statistics. So I want to keep us on track for now. So let's go to FTM and let's go to CRV. And first, let me drop in the chat. And then I'm going to go to FTM. No worries, GS. Kia, I got you, man. OM. Yeah, I don't think it's in the dashboard, right? OM or Arrow. I don't. Yeah, OM does not have enough data. I knew it's going you later. Yeah. Okay. So unfortunately, I don't have data on it. So if I require at least 2 years to perp data, and if it's not there, then I don't include them because you cannot make any statistical conclusions on little data. DCR. Nice seeing another. Great live, guys. Thank you, man. Is it possible to do a 50-minute and 1-minute summary data in order to jump into scalp longs/shorts? What kind of summary data would you want to see that we do not have? That's my question. Just let me know, and I can definitely think about it. Because right now, oh wait, sorry, 50-minute and 1-minute summary data. Yeah, that would be right now. I don't have it, so that would be a future feature. It would be quite a drastic change. I would have to do quite some changes, but maybe in the future I can make it possible. I mean, not maybe. I can probably make this happen in the future. Yeah. So very interesting suggestion. that would definitely enter us more in the realm of scalps. OM is performing really well, by the way, one of my favorites. Peter, question, Sergio, will December this year be one of the blow-off tops, as we know a couple next year? Um, I I personally think that we're going to see an intercycle top around October/November, probably maybe around the end of the US elections. And then we're going to see a retracement. But I personally believe that that will temporary, that it will be an intercycle top, and then we will continue the bull cycle until the end of next year, 2025. That's my current best estimate. But obviously, I will keep on monitoring. But I do believe that's the most likely scenario at this point in time. Tara, love the session tab. It will be today, P1 in New York. Yeah, could definitely be, man. It would line up, right? That we take out this low, then go up. Or, I mean, if the crypto, the market gods decide to bless us with a bullish ETF launch on ETH, that could happen. All right, let's dig into FTM. FTM, let's look. I don't know what this was. I hope I didn't take that. But let me check. Man, it's crazy how much these coins nuked. 70%. I'm happy I stayed in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Crazy. I mean, this is the part where you could obviously apply some TA, do some quick ones. Yeah. So if you were to have a reversal, this is definitely a place where that might happen, as in a short-term reversal, because obviously the bigger time frame trend is still down. All right, so I already know the weekly doesn't have a bias, so I'm not going to look at that. We have a naked daily point of control right below it. And that's immediately an important point I want to make. Right now, we just front run it. But if I see a low probability pivot, but so say it would have gone a little bit lower. If I see a low probability pivot being put in on the naked daily point of control, I will not trade into it, right? So if we have a low probability pivot here, even if this instead stats and everything is saying low probability, I prefer not to short it right there because naked daily point of controls are just such powerful levels that I prefer not to trade into them. The opposite is true as well. If I would see a strong pivot being put in at the naked daily point of control or a moderate pivot being put in at the naked daily point of control, then I would be more biased to say, well, you know, maybe it's worth taking a little bit more risk there, even if the statistics are not very in favor of it. If I see we come from a naked daily point of control, for me that's very bullish. All right, so let me just remove these filters right here, and let me get FTM. I'm gonna get CRV on there as well. So I'm gonna get BTC, ETH, CRV, FTM, and LDO. And I will save that as my watch list for today. Daily watch list update. So we know that FTM has a slight bearish bias, and 35% of days would we go lower. At the same time, we have hour 1 is P1 and hour 6 is P2. We can see that hour 6 is pretty low probability. So this is what I would do, right? I go from top to bottom, higher time frame to lower time frame. I already know that the lower time frame or the highest time frame doesn't have a bias, so I'm not going to look into that. I'll just stick with the lower time frames. I'll select FTM here. So this is just what I do to get more data. I already see the data on the summary page, but this is just what I do to get even more granular data. Um, yeah, so hour six looks really terrible. Same here. You can just see that this whole cluster doesn't happen anymore, right? Hours three, four, five, six. We don't put in any P1s during that time, and we definitely don't put in any P2s. So this is just a very low probability time. We have seen that these probabilities have shifted towards the first 2 hours of the day and hour 13, 14. So that immediately makes me think that, or at least, especially since we front run that naked daily point of control, it wouldn't be such a weird idea to do this. But yeah, so the P2 is not my favorite low. The only thing is that we did have this nice SFP from that level, and if I'm not mistaken, our 8 hour, I think, is bullish. Yeah, it is. Let's see how bullish. FTM, yeah. So, oh wow, yeah, good spot. GSKI. So only 8% of days would take out this 8 hour low and or 8 hour candle, sorry, and 78% of these 8 hour candles during this 8 hour block would actually see higher. So that brings us to an interesting situation where we both have the daily low being improbable to hold, but we have the 8 hour being very bullish, right? So this is actually a very nice example that if so, I've now decided that, or you could derive that the daily low is unlikely to hold, right? Basically, because that hour six is just a very, very bad hour to put it in, and we have a slight bias in terms of distance statistics to the downside. If I see that, what I do not want to see, so that's what I usually do. So, say I just did my whole analysis and I went and I decided, well, lower for the daily is likely. What I would not want to see is to come here. So, I want to take a short on the daily, which right here is undecided because it doesn't meet the thresholds. But we've seen, from more thorough analysis that hour six is very, very improbable. I'm actually going to integrate time statistics into this overview as well. Just been very occupied with the tutorials at the moment, but I will. But what I do not want to see if I want to take short on the daily is a strong bull signal on the 8 hour or 4 hour, right? So this is my process where if I identify statistically likely setup on the daily, so in this case going short, then I do not want to see the 8 hour to 4 hour a strong bull signal to the upside. A regular bull signal I would not mind, but strong bull I do not go against, right? So at the very least, I want to see this as undecided or maybe just slightly bull. So what that means is that right now, what it tells me is that, well, in case we do take out the daily low, it seems statistically unlikely that this is the time and place to do it. So what you could do is take a long here, which would probably be a scalp, right? So you probably want to take more of a scalp, or at least, I mean, depends on what you want to do. Maybe you just want to wait for the short signal, whatever your bias is, because there is. Let me just mark out some important levels. Let me get. So yeah, we have, okay. That the range POC is also a naked daily point of control, which is important. So I'm gonna remove this one. So this is a very important level, right there. But that is above the daily high. And this is the value area. Yeah, I mean, personally, when I see price deviate from a range like that, I always I prefer to assume that we're going to get a reclaim rather than a breakdown. But in this case, what I would do is, okay, the daily is pointing lower, the 8 hour is pointing higher. What you could do is look for a long with invalidation below the 8 hour low, right? And then treat it as a scalp. So you for example, could take, I don't know, I don't like this. This is not the most beautiful order block I've ever seen. But just look for a resistance point and take it till there, and then possibly later on. So what you would then, could see is this higher, and then without taking out the daily high, going for the daily low. So the 8 hour looks good for further upside, but the daily not super convincing for downside, but the daily low is just a very, very bad low. So, right, so this is the case where you have, okay, the daily pointing slightly down, but that P2 just looks very, very bad. But the 8 hour is pointing slightly up. So what you can do is that if you would decide to take a short here, then at least you know now is probably not the time, and waiting might be the best option. You could even look for a long, and all you have to do is that if you have the daily high right here, let me just mark it out as such. And if you would decide to take that long, then you can just see what happens after you break this, right? If you keep going after that, this is how you keep going, then you just monitor as price develops and not close the trade. In general, if I would see a very strong, right now, I don't think the daily bearish signal is too strong. It's only because of the time, but it's not too convincing. But if it would be very strong, then what I would prefer to do here is not take a long, but just wait for a short signal to appear, or a short setup to come, and then take the move down. Because if I have a very strong bearish signal on the day, I don't want to override that. But in this case, it's not the case, right? So. Let's see, DCR, thanks, it would be lovely. I'm sure it's going to be a powerful tool for scalping. Exactly, ETF, maybe the trigger. Thanks, Sergio. All right. Yeah, DCR, I will definitely intend on making that in the future. And what I will also intend to do back at that point is go into bot territory, as I do think the data model will be very suited for writing bots. I mean, the data is exceptionally well for bots, and especially if you go to the 1 minute and 50 minutes, I mean, wouldn't make any sense to not put it in a bot. Yeah, I do very much intend creating the Minoma bot department at some point. It's further in the future, and it will probably be somewhere at that time. So 8 hour looking nice for further upside on most coins, right? We've seen that all across the board. And that's also the thing I've said many times before. If I see the 8 hour or any time frame predominantly focused on one direction, so in this case, I see a lot of green in the charts, a lot of really big, strong bull, then there's consensus across the market. And I would personally say there's more conviction of that playing out. And then we want to come again to the question, do the statistics already know what's happening, or does it not? And that's actually very interesting to see. And if we go higher, actually, for the day, I would be inclined to say, because I've seen it before, that there is a case to be made that the statistics might know something. Let me just put an alert here. New 8 hour P2. Let me set an expiration date. There you go. All right, so that is FTM. So conclusion, current 8 hour candle upside, and possibly after that taking out the daily low, because it doesn't look daily low doesn't look too great. But for the current 8 hour candle, upside seems to be the consensus. So another one I want to check out is CRV, as it is the one that had the best stats. Let me check LDO. It also, yeah, so LDO already went up, because when I first checked, let me just go to the watch list. When I first checked LDO, it was quite bullish, but it might have already had that run. All right, let me check CRV. So CRV 6.4% against 67%. So this is the most bullish looking of coins today. Current P1 hour 5, current P2 hour 10. Okay, so again, the current P1 is not a convincing one. We see we have some similar price action. But yeah, I don't like the price action too much. I'm going to be honest. Let me see what's happening here. We went past that naked daily point of control. Okay, so nothing too alarming on that front. Nothing too alarming on that front. Just doing some basic TA. You can see my process is that at first, and that's why I started doing the streams with Tim as well. First, I look at the statistics, and then I'm gonna check, okay, what are the basic, and then I do some basic TA just to see if there's any alarming signals, right? That's the first thing I look for, and if not, then I might go for it. And this actually looks good because we came from that daily, from that range low right here, right? So we have a clear range here, clear sideways range. We are nearing that point of control that must be set. We did take some liquidity at the lows, but we're gonna come back to this later. I mean, this is a really nice SFP, but I don't think this doesn't look like finished business to me. We don't have to come now though, but I wouldn't be surprised to revisit these lows. To me, it just seems like there's more liquidity to be taken. Let's also see, yeah, there's barely any volume here as well. I do think we're going to revisit these lows at some point, go under it for a proper grab, and then probably the grab would be more something like this, and then go up. If price reclaims, could also break down. But for now, the simple truth is that we came from range lows, reclaimed the value area low, which is not a bad thing to do, right? So at least from a price action standpoint, this is definitely not an alarming signal that there's no trade to be taken. We have P1 at hour 5 and P2 at hour 10. P1, so it is a lower probability pivot, but we're going to have a lower probability pivot regardless by the looks of it, unless we have that P1 during New York and crash down from there. But so far, we can see that taking out the daily low from here would be more or less a 6.4% occurrence like this. That would happen like only 6.4% of days have a P1 that's that far. So if we do that P1, P2 flip, this is not very likely. Not very likely at all. And then we have our 10. So let's go into, so see, this is what I do. This is like my general overview. And then when I try to create a real plan, I also go to the actual coins and look a little bit closer because there is some data to be had. I think I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna implement these in the summary page as well, because this is the thing I look to most. I mean, it has been a really long time since we put in a P1 at hour 5, 124 days. So that's not something I like to see. I personally prefer to see, if I see something like this and it didn't happen for a long time, I prefer to assume it will not happen for, or continue not to happen for a long time. It's just my personal bias. I found that works best. Not the best thing to see. But if our 10 does hold, we can see that our 10 actually lately, they're both really shit pivots. They're both really shit pivots. What I actually noticed is that there is a higher probability, higher distribution of P1 being put in the first 3 hours for this coin compared to others, quite a bit. But lately, this hour 5 has not been happening. But if it holds, then we know that hour 10 is not a good P2, because that one's even worse. It's 218 days since hour 10 has been P2, right? So we know that if this holds, then this is a very unlikely P2. And this is why I have the distance statistics, because back in the days when we only had time statistics, this is all we had. But right now we have an extra tool in our arsenal, and that is that we can say, well, at least in terms of distance statistics, only 6.4% of days would have that P1, P2 flip, which strengthens for us the idea that, it's just statistically reasonable to assume that this is not a good pivot to hold and that this one is stronger than this one, right? So we know that at least statistically, this one is stronger from a distance perspective, and this one is weak from a distance and a distance perspective because of this, right? 67% of days would go higher, and hour 10 is a bad time to put in a daily P2. So we know that the daily is most likely would go up there normally. Again, I keep on repeating normally because we have a weird day on our hands. But if we go to the 8 hour, I mean, we can see the same thing. Very low probability of taking out the 8 hour low. Right, so 8 hour P1 is here, 8 hour P2 is there. And let me actually view that in the summary. So this is CRV. You can see good statistics for the 8 hour. Not too convincing, this one. So you could also definitely see price a little bit bleed out here. I wouldn't be surprised. That's often what happens after a drastic move, but still slight edge towards more upside. And especially if you look at P2 here, that becomes more evident because we can see that P2 in this 8 hour, in the third 8 hour, and third hourly block of the 8 hour candle is unlikely. We can see it's a 5.5% probability. So we can conclude that the daily is biased for upside and the 8 hour is biased for upside. And this becomes more clear if we go to the time stats. Where we can see very low probability of putting it in during this putting in P2. It's also been 18 8 hour candles. That's happening a little less lately. The higher probability would actually be to flip on the 8 hour. So to do this. So this has more chance of being a P1 than being a P2 is what I'm saying. But so far, because of the distance statistics, doesn't seem a lot of reason to think that will happen. But once again, not a normal day today, guys. If there would be any day with a big reversal, today would be the day. 3.9%. But if it would happen, we know that, or actually, it's probably going to be a bit more. Sorry, I didn't have this on. Oh, no, actually, no. 3.8%. Yeah, so this would happen only in 3.8% of the 8 hour candles of this 8 hour candle, right? From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. UTC. So really not a high probability play. Which means that, and let me just actually change this because this is, no, wait, this one. Really not necessary anymore with, found a bug. I found a bug. Really not necessary anymore, those lines. That was from before the automatic inserting of everything and these markers. But, so somewhere here looking for a long would maybe not even be a weird idea, especially considering that the daily is looking ripe for more upside. The only caution, because now the 8 hour, so this is actually a nice example. So right here we have the daily low here and the daily high there, right? Daily P1 here, daily P2 there. We have concluded that the daily P2 must most likely go, or at least it's not a good pivot. And if the daily low will hold, then the daily high will very likely go. And so what you could do is say, okay, hey, I want to look for a trade that continues that daily, uptrend that we have. And I know what a lot of people do is take this as the first target and then have this as the invalidation, right? Daily P2. But in this case, you cannot do that because you would have a 0.5 risk to reward, which is obviously not a very bad risk to reward. But in this kind of situation where we see, where we see that 8 hour is also biased for upside, then what you could actually do is take it on the 8 hour and use that as the invalidation, and then suddenly you have a 1.05 risk to reward. Obviously, this is completely up to you what the risk to reward you want to maintain. It depends on your trading strategy. I think in some trading strategies, above 1 RR is actually enough. I know everyone always says 2 RR or 3 RR. Really depends on your win rate. If you have like a really high win rate setup, then just over 1 RR can definitely be enough, and you can obviously take it further. But again, it really depends on your strategy. And either way, what I'm trying to say is that you can use in this case, because the daily high and the 8 hour high are both the same, and the 8 hour high looks like it must go, and the daily high looks like it must go. In that case, you could choose to use your 8 hour low as your invalidation instead of your daily low as your invalidation. Right? These setups show up more often. But once again, I personally would not like. For me, this day is just sitting on my hands. I wouldn't personally not take any action. It's just too weird of a day. I prefer to wait for days where you do not have something massive as an ETH ETF launch, but each their own. Everyone can make it up for themselves. But yeah, higher does seem likely for CRV, at least statistically speaking. Oh, what am I doing? New P2. All right. So now we covered quite a bit. We covered Ethereum, we covered Curve, we covered FTM. Let me see what is happening. All right. And now we are at the calm before the storm. All right. So what I want to do now is actually switch, because I think I've discussed quite a bit from the statistics dashboard. Obviously, for Bitcoin, we're still waiting to take out this low. What I want to do now is look a little bit at ETH and ETH BTC charts and give a little bit more, or at least I haven't really done it in a while, so I want to do it for myself. Feel free to tune in. I'm going to give my thoughts on what I think is most likely to happen on the longer term on the ETH and ETH BTC ratio, uh, regardless of what happens today. So we are now leaving the realms of, and this is going to be short, by the way, 10 more minutes, because I do like to keep it at a 90-minute stream, as you all know, to keep the attention of everyone and respect everyone's time. But so the statistics dashboard part is now over. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to ask them right now. And if I see any questions regarding the statistics, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I want to quickly go over ETH BTC, because obviously today is about ETH. Ethereum is the king of the show today. Elena, Sergio, could please add ENS to the dashboard? Isn't that quite new? It's Ether now, right? Let me check. No, I can add that. Yeah, I will add it. I will add it. Yeah, guys, if you have any assets, like what you need to do is go to if you want add any assets that you want me to add, then go to the perpetual contract pair on Bybit and see if it has more than 2 years of historical data. If it does, then I can add it. So let me just make a note. I will add it today. Da-da-da-da. And then let me switch to the ETH Bitcoin chart. Let me actually switch to my high time frame chart. Oh, give me 1 second, guys. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. ETH, Bitcoin. What will happen? What will happen? I am still biased for more upside, although I know there is more and more talk that Solana is the new ETH of this cycle, and I mean I cannot argue with that. Solana against ETH has been doing extremely well this cycle so far, but I do still feel that ETH Bitcoin time is coming. My analysis still holds of what I've been saying ever since the bottom, right? As you might know, is that since this bottom, I've been saying that I do think higher prices are likely because we're simply at this, what looks to me the reaccumulation zone. But the very basic premises of this is you can just keep things very simple and just state that we had this massive range here and we are now deviating below this range. And for me, the only logical thing to do when I see price, or in this case, the ratio, move behind a range like that is to get bullish, right? And I know a lot of people and a lot of your favorite influencers will get bearish here, and this is exactly what happened at this low here, that everyone got super, super bearish. But for me, if you see you're at the range, you're deviating below the lows of the range, but not really aggressively breaking down. Personally, I prefer to be bullish. This is the exact same thing that happened here with Bitcoin, right? Where everyone and their mothers were freaking out, becoming bearish upon losing, in between quotation marks, this range here, right? We lost this range. Let's say this range low, or this one if you want to take it, and everyone's like, oh my God, we're going down. So for me, that doesn't make any sense. I just don't see why you wouldn't get bullish at range lows, because whoever is freaking out, they forget two golden rules of trading. A, you get bullish at range lows, not bearish. And two, ranges fake out more often than they break out or break down in this case, which I think is the case here as well. So all in all, I'm still bullish. I do think a reclaim of this would be the most logical scenario looking at things. Of course, it doesn't need to happen. I could be wrong in the idea, but this is my notion right now. And what I think is, well, the question is what's going to happen now with this ETF launch. And that I want to speculate on. Because obviously we know that in order for a real alt season to start, which people have been calling for months, and normally it would have already been there as well, we need ETH-BTC, traditionally speaking, to show some strength. So will the ETH ETF provide that? Right? Will the ETH ETF provide that? This is the question. And I have basically two scenarios in mind on how that would happen. And if I just... So for me, I mean, what is the range low? Doesn't really matter. So this little pump is interesting because obviously we have this compression right here, more or less, like it's well, just very roughly put, we have this compression here, right? And normally, what I always, what most often happens is that you have this compression, and then whichever area you go to first is the fake out, and then you go to the other side, right? So right now, this could be considered the fake out, although I don't think it's too convincing yet. What I do like is that we are grinding down, or we were grinding down. I would have preferred this to continue a little bit longer. If you grind down up into the ETF launch, then that is good. Right now, we have this little bullish pump before the ETF launch, which is not something I prefer to see. We could see continuation, but I prefer not to see it. So what I definitely think could happen, and you already notice if you have followed me for any time, that I always say when you see these kind of candles leave behind the imbalance, that must get filled at least halfway. So right now we actually have filled it halfway, right? touch that 0.5 right there. So that makes for an interesting confluence for that. However, I'm definitely keeping in mind the possibility, because not only do we have that imbalance, we also have this very nice order block right there, or demand zone as such, that I do keep a scenario open where price could actually continue to bleed down into this order block again, filling that complete imbalance, and then taking off from there. Because what would happen right here is that it would probably trick everyone into believing that the ETF was a sell the news event, and that it was ETH is that, and so on and so on. So and this is what I mean. Everyone here was probably like, "Oh my God, I wish I bought ETH." If it will go down, I will definitely buy ETH again. But I can tell you that if it gets here, those very same people who said they would buy it when price is here, they will also flip here and say, "Oh no, it's looking very bad. We're gonna go down." So this is a scenario I am looking for if we do not get the bounce immediately from here, right? But yeah, I'm really conflicted about the immediate price action. I do not know. I've scored Twitter, and I also think everyone is very divided. There is a group that thinks price will immediately teleport to infinity with the ETF launch. That I think is unlikely. But there's also a group who thinks it's an enormous sell the news event, and ETH is that. So it's not a very clear bias in that sense. But we are at this range low here, I see. Very area low, which is interesting. But so for me, the most probable scenario is either something like this, where the ETF launch will actually, result in some bullishness, depending on how much selling will happen from Grayscale. And otherwise, I do think this is a very real scenario where you go down, fill this imbalance, and really, really let everyone capitulate who bought here, right? Because that's what would happen. Because everyone then would think we would go much lower. The final thing I want to say on it is that what is happening now a lot is that people are comparing the ETH ETF to the Bitcoin ETF, right? They say, well, when Bitcoin ETF launched, everything dropped after the ETF launch. And I think that was more or less around here. I think here was the ETF launch, if I'm not mistaken. When was the ETF launch? Bitcoin ETF launch date. When did the Bitcoin ETF launch? January 24? No, I remember that it dropped after, maybe it got announced. Here. Yeah, no, that could be actually. It was here. Here, right? But in my opinion, it was a much different price action. So what a lot of people do is that they look at the last time something happened. So in this case, ETF launch, they say, okay, well, that happened here. And what happened is that price just like kind of went up, and then, or at least what they say, well, after the ETF launch, price nuked, right? So therefore it will happen again. This is what people always do. They look at like the last time something happened, and they take that one data point to make a decision on what's happening again. I don't have data on this, but I would say 99% of the time, price does not mimic the same behavior like that. I've seen that time and time over. For some reason, people really like to do this kind of analysis, but it's just not good practice to look at one data point, obviously. And besides that, I feel like this is because everyone or a lot of the more inexperienced people are doing this. It's a very easy way to trick people and go from there. So what people fail to understand, I think, is that this was a significant different scenario or context where we came from. Whereas here, you had this massive retarded run up, right? The market was pretty retarded in this stage, just going higher highs and higher lows without fail. And then the ETF launch was on top of that enormous grind up, which is a perfect setup for a sell the news event. Whereas right now, what we've had is that we took so here, the best way to put it is that here we had an enormous buildup of liquidity at the lows, like enormous and like absolutely enormous. In this case, we have a much different scenario where we already took a lot of liquidity at the lows, then took liquidity at the lows again, and just reclaimed the range low after deviating from it, right? So the context is vastly different. So this is Bitcoin, obviously, but Ethereum has a similar piece of price action, right? Where we just came from that range low, and you can just see it. The move is not as overextended as it was. So right now, we have been ranging for a while on Ethereum as well, and which is remarkably different than grinding up all the time. So another thing that could actually happen is just a boring outcome for price to just kind of keep moving like this. But I just want to make the case that I don't think it's fair to compare the Bitcoin ETF to the ETH ETF and conclude that the same thing will happen, which is a nuke of price. I just do not think that's a fair comparison. Um, and yeah, if anything, people believing that will happen will makes me more skews probability to the side that it will not happen, aka that we will see more upside. But let's see. I think the ETF is going live now, isn't it? Going live now. So we will soon find out. Meanwhile, Bitcoin hovering around that P2. Remember that we're looking to take that low, as we said. Seems a matter of time. Did the ETF start trading now? Let me check. Oh yeah, there you go. They are live. They are live. And what will happen? What will happen? Yeah, so you do have this liquidity buildup at the locally. I could see a shorter term nuke to take us some liquidity here, but not as extreme as I would not expect it to be as extreme as we had with oh, there we go, as we had with Bitcoin, right? So we can see a liquidity run here, but we're not gonna do something like Bitcoin did, something like this, right? And I just don't think that's going to happen. So Bitcoin took out the low. There we go. P2 taken. Boom. P2 taken. And now we know that this low must hold if we want to see immediate upside at least. Again, if this doesn't hold, it's not over for the bulls, not at all. Still high time frame bullish or mid time frame bullish. But for now, for like the most bullish scenario, but that would be up only mode, this would hold. But so far, the market seems to be reacting as a sell the news event. Which honestly could be a temporary thing. I would not be surprised to see price fake nuke and make everyone believe that it was a sell the news event only then to take off. But I mean, we will find out. We'll have to be a little bit patient. We don't know. We won't know any numbers until tomorrow. But so far, it's already nice to see that price took this low. Exactly what we wanted to see. Probabilities have changed by now. I won't have time to go into it because we're at the end of the stream, guys. But what did happen is that we took out that P2 that we were looking for based on some simple time statistics, nothing complicated. We can look at what FTM and CRV are doing. Almost taking out that 8-hour low on FTM. Again, this is why I say I personally would have not acted in this 8-hour block on anything because of the ETF and then CRV. Wait, I think it was FTM. We said the daily low must go. Right. FTM, we said the daily low doesn't look strong. We would like to take it, but maybe after this 8-hour block. But so far, this 8-hour block is going down. And CRV, we said actually does look decent for further upside. And we would want to see this hold and then price go up from there. But we'll also have to wait for that. And this will become definitely way more probable if this Bitcoin low would hold. If this Bitcoin low goes, if we lose it, then yeah, I do think we might see a further nuke. But so far it's holding, right? So far it's holding, so it's looking really nice. So this is a nice reaction so far. Not a lot of volume. I would have preferred to see more volume, but this is exactly the kind of thing we were looking for, right? And this is actually a very nice use case of the statistics, and especially the time-based statistics. What we often say is that often you have a level. So say you want to trade this level because you have a low time frame value area low. It's probably going to hang out around here, and you want to long it, but you know, in this case, we know that the long was not the right time yet, right? So price, you could see price move up, and what you normally would have is FOMO, and you might actually enter here, say like, oh fuck, I don't want to miss the move. I've been waiting for this value area low forever, and you start entering something like this, right? But in this case, we have seen, all right, this hour 7 is really a low probability period to put in a pivot. So let's wait until there comes a more probable pivot, and we just had it, right? So it makes a lot more sense to take a long from here. And I'm not saying we have to, but you know, we are holding this level that I said I want to hold in validation of up only mode, right? So again, if this holds and we go higher from here, that's really, really bullish, really bullish. Then yeah, like I said, the market could enter retardation mode. But you know, in this case, it helped us wait and be patient and wait for a better pivot. So at the very least, it will have kept you out of this long trade, where it's not a good time to enter it. So let's see if this holds. But we'll have to do that somewhere outside of this stream. I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen today with Ethereum and pretty much the rest of the market. But we'll find out. Guys, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for all the good questions. It was a busy day with questions today. Love it. Awesome to see, man. So thank you all for watching. Remember that tomorrow evening is the Q&A session. In case anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat. And then I can handle them tomorrow in the voice chat. And I am working on some big tutorials, and you'll see them soon as well. Terror, awesome stream, Sergio. Cool tips for analysis and selling news or actually buy them. Every took liquidity or every left liquidity to take to really help questions to ask ourselves. Context is king. Amen. Amen. Nothing to add. Context really important. All right, guys. I'm going to leave you to it. Thank you very much. Catch you on the next stream. Catch you in the Discord.